I started speaking in my father's church. I was thrown into the audience one day at the age of 8, and I had no idea what was happening, but words started coming out of my mouth, and my speaking career began.
No
And from
stage fright, huh?
I didn't think about it, to be honest. I think I was innocent enough and stupid enough and not really self-aware enough that I just stood there and something happened. And so from that moment, I would speak every few weeks, every month, every 1 to 2 months, I'd be speaking in my dad's church. And that was a really, I don't know, it was a very special experience looking back now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so when I was 14, I was actually ordained as a minister. And I was given the
Wow.
mandate to take over my father's organization. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of followers in Ghana, West Africa, right? And 5,000 people every Sunday in London. And so it was announced, unbeknownst to me, that I was the guy that was going to take over my father's spiritual legacy and his organization. And when it was announced, my heart sank because I knew this wasn't my path. This wasn't my destiny. This wasn't my trajectory, my purpose in life. And
And
so
I want to just ask, was your mom in line with this? Did she just agree? Was she there?
she
Was she
didn't
present?
really know either. Yeah. I mean, imagine we were both on stage, and all of a sudden, my mom's on stage, I'm on stage. My dad says to 5,000 people, my son's taking over. And I look at my mom across the stage, and she looks at me, and she didn't know. And it was just the thing, right? It was just
Yeah,
what was happening. And so I knew in that moment that this was not my path. And my heart sank in a certain sense because I knew I wanted to help people, but I just knew this wasn't aligned.
yeah,
This wasn't my destiny, at least the form with which I felt called to
right.
express. And so I was just too afraid. And my fear was if I speak my truth, if I tell my truth, if I dare to be who I am, I'm going to lose my father. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be outcast. The community won't love me. And so, like many of us, I think we allow fear to hijack our authentic expression. And I said nothing for 4 years, went along with it. But all the while trying to convince myself that, no, I can do this. Maybe I can make this work. I can make this happen. And yet there was always this niggling feeling inside of me that something's not aligned, something's not right. So it was a tremendous internal conflict that I went through. And so the shift happened when I was 18. I started feeling a deep calling, a deep nudging to come to Southern California, specifically either like Los Angeles or San Diego, because this is where all of the self-help books I've read, this is where all of the authors
Okay,
were.
which ones were you reading? Which were you most drawn to
I
at a
mean,
young age?
look, age 11, I was reading Tony Robbins. Age
Yeah,
12, I started Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Marianne Williamson, Brian Tracy,
yeah,
Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Stephen Covey. I mean, Dan Millman, Shakti Gawain, the list goes on.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so they all seem to live in Southern California. And so I felt this like nudging in my soul, like go to Los Angeles, go to
Yeah.
Los Angeles. And so sometimes what your soul guides you to do doesn't always make sense to your logic, doesn't always make sense to your ego or your mind. But I really believe that the
Every time you
power,
hire a coach, have you surrendered certain business ideas? I mean, somebody does that. They're taking ideas of their business from a coach, or you're listening. I mean, there's a lot of different forms of surrender, but I love the way you described it,
cool.
and just being open to the magic. I mean, everybody wants magic, everyone wants joy. I mean, they're all higher frequencies anyway. So you seem to really light up when you talked about India. And what I've read about your trips that you took people on to India, they sounded like survival of the fittest for you.
Yeah, I don't do those
Yeah,
anymore. But
I didn't
yeah.
think so. That didn't sound like surrender, unless that people were surrendering to your way of the trips, I guess.
No, it was profound surrender, and it was all about teaching people surrender. But I don't do those anymore.
Yeah. So when people ask you like what you do for a living, you say, I'm a motivational teacher. Like, what's the most common
No,
question
I'm
you
not.
get
I'm
asked?
not a motivational teacher or
Yeah.
speaker. It may be people are motivated, but if
Yeah.
anything, I'm a transformational teacher, and I help people peel away the layers of their own conditioning so that they can see who they really are and live that in the world. And I help people access their own inner freedom more than anything. And so I
So
help
for
people transform.
So if somebody listening and they want to know, well, what are the first few steps that I could take? Because everybody listening is not going to be able
Yeah.
to access you. I mean, they
Yeah.
actually can on YouTube and with his books, but and what we have links to everything for you along with the description of the episode. But what are some steps that they can take to help themselves?
Sure. Look, I would just want to frame it to say I don't think there's a one step formula for
Right.
everybody because
Of
everybody
course.
is different. We're
Yeah.
all human beings and we all need different things in different moments. But what I will say is, in a general sense, if someone is wondering where they can begin, I think one simple but very real place to start that if they begin here, life will begin to transform for sure. Doesn't matter where you are. One of the things as human beings that keeps us stuck are all the ways that we lie to ourselves. In so many ways, consciously or unconsciously, we lie to ourselves. We BS ourselves and we rationalize the lies and excuses as an unconscious self-protective mechanism to keep the status quo. We stay in relationships that we know are not aligned. They're not authentic. We work jobs that we hate that is not a true expression of our purpose. We say yes when we mean no. We betray our integrity. I mean, the list goes on and we can get into the reasons why. And so I think that one place where people can start is to begin to look at and ask themselves the question, what lies am I telling myself? There is no transformation without truth. There is no true freedom without truth. The truth will set us free. To me, truth is real yoga. Truth is real, like real spirituality isn't just prayers and mantras and yoga postures. It's telling yourself the freaking truth about who you are, about what you feel, about what's not so. Yet, I think in so many ways, as a child, I was too afraid to tell my truth to my father because I was afraid of the consequences. And so, what I would just encourage people as a support is don't put any pressure on yourself of taking action.